Hello everyone, this is Ashish again, and we will continue our session on PowerShell now. What we have covered in the previous video about object oriented, so being object oriented programming or scripting language, what flexibility PowerShell gives you, what are the upside of having a object oriented scripting language for system admins. And then we understood the concept of piping and pipelines, and then alias. Now we will continue our session on variables and data types. Then we will especially talk about a special type of variables like arrays and hash table, and then we will talk about operators. So this is my agenda. These three topics are for today's agenda, and then we will be continuing our session in the upcoming videos. So let's start it. So let's start from, so we discussed alias yesterday, in previous video, and let's start the variables and data types in PowerShell. So variable start with $sign. So as you if you are familiar with PowerShell scripts till yet, or you have if you have followed my previous videos, you have seen that $sign and then name of the variable. It can be anything, variable 1, variable 2, or anything. It just cannot start with the integer. You can have you cannot have something like this. You can have variable 1, so something like this, var1, and then I can declare it a value like something, any string or integer. Like suppose I have put in a string over here, then I can say variable 2 is equals to a number 2 or 3, whatever the number is, so something like that. And if I will let's try to do one thing. Write host is used for writing your output on the host, that is your shell. So write host $var1. okay, so I'm printing var1, and then write host var2, so printing var2. So it will, let's start to run it. And then if you see the output, the first one is Ashish and the second one is 32. So in this way you can use your variables in your script wherever you want, whether you want to print it on the screen, or whether you want a little bit of modification to it, or you may want it to in a particular command or something. So that's how you can use variables. Now so these are the variables. Now there is a point that variable in it's a dynamic language. So what do we mean by dynamic language is that I have declared variable, but I have not told PowerShell what kind of variable this is, whether it will be a string or whether it will be an integer. So PowerShell is able to determine itself that this is a string. So let's try one thing. Let's try to get the type of this variable. Variable 1 dot, as we used get type, so it will print the type of that variable. So let's try first variable 1. okay, so variable 1 is a string type. Now let's try the same thing for a variable 2, right? So let's try the same thing for variable 2, and then get type, and then let's see if it prints string or something else. It should print integer, right? Int 32. So I have not told PowerShell that this would be an integer, but PowerShell is able to automatically determine the type of the data type. So when you do not have to explicitly tell what type of data you are assigning to that variable, that's what we call dynamic language. It is able to get the data type of the variable. So you don't you have the option, so you do not have to explicitly tell that this would be an integer. But if you want to, suppose you want to declare it as a as integer, you don't so what situation it might be. Let's do little bit of little bit of tweaking. Like suppose you have entered it as string, right? So if I have entered it as a string, and now let's try to do the same thing. var1 $var1, okay, dot get type, okay, and then the same thing for var2, $var2 dot get type. Now I have explicitly assigned a variable 32 but within a quote. So what it does, PowerShell, let's try that. Okay, now this is also a string. However, as per me, I supposed to get this as an integer. So what happens, sometime you give an option to the user that he can input the variable value, and somehow you do not have control over the the input system. Like it might be a browser, it might be a console, it might be a graphical user interface application. So I mean, you don't have the control over that, and the value from there, it's coming 32, but it is converted into a string. I mean, for that system it is a string. Now you want to accept the values in the form of integer. So if you want to have that flexibility, PowerShell gives you that flexibility where you explicitly tell that no, this would be integer value. So if someone is assigning a valid integer value, but it is getting passed into a string value, then PowerShell, if you will explicitly tell PowerShell the value type, the variable type, then it will convert that value into the explicit value. Like suppose, now let's try to run it. Okay, so you see this is in 32. Now let's try to do one thing. Okay, if I will not say variable 1 and variable 2 value, so automatically it is a string, right? Now let's do one thing. Variable 1 plus is a sign which has two meanings actually. So for a string it is a concat, but for a integer it is a sum. I mean, it will add. So let's try. I mean, as you know, these two things are in string type. So what plus would do? I mean, let's do one thing. Let's, instead of Ashish, let's do one thing. Let's add here 3. Okay, so there are two values. Okay, 3 and 32, both are string, both will be string, and I'm trying to add them. Let's try to see what happens. Okay, so let's do one thing. Instead of that, right now the memory is causing issue. Let's do one thing. Let's launch it again. Okay, this is the one of the disadvantage of ISE. So you have everything in one scope. You might have run something and it is still in the memory. So that's why whenever you run a script, you will use console or shell instead of a ISE. I mean, integrated scripting environment. Let's do the same thing again. Variable 1 is equals to, I will say 3. Okay, and $variable 2 is equals to, I will say 2. Let's just 2, and then let's get the type of each one. var1 dot get type. Okay, now let's do the same thing. $var2 dot get type. Okay, so, and then let's do one thing. Let's do some operation over these two variables. var1, okay, plus var2. So we were expecting these two values to be integer, and then when we are doing the plus operation, we suppose that we should get the value as 5. I mean, this 3 plus 2 is equals to 5. Now let's see what happened. Okay, so we did this, but what happened, it automatically converted this into a string. Okay, and then string and string, these two strings plus sign concat them. That's why we are getting 32 instead of 3 plus 2. I mean, 3 plus 2 is 5. So I mean, now I want the flexibility that even if due to some reason, if the information coming from user, even if it is correct, but due to some input system parsing or converting it, it gets converted into some other invalid data type, then what is the then PowerShell is automatically getting the incorrect data type. So what how can I control it? So you can control it using explicitly declare that, okay boss, this variable 1 and variable 2 supposed to be integer only. Even if someone enters 3 2 in double quotes, in a string format, then also you need to convert it into a integer, valid integer type. Now if someone will do, instead of 3, if someone will do this will be a invalid and there will be error. So we are not covering this particular exception, because the PowerShell, in behind the PowerShell, .NET is working, and .NET is actually converting all these things. So if you will do that, .NET is not able to explicitly pass that value into a valid integer value. But if you will do this, and due to some input information and things, if it got converted into a string, then if PowerShell by default, mistakenly it is accepting it as a string, however you accepted is you expected it as a integer, then you have the you have the control to declare the variable type. So that's what it is. That's when you will actually use it. Normally we do not declare the value type, but when we are dependent on someone to enter that value, we will explicitly declare the variable type, so that if someone is entering something wrong, then he will either get the error, or if he will enter the right value, it will be forcibly converted into that valid type. Let's try to run it now again. So last time we got 3 2 30, instead of 3 plus 2 is equals to 5, we got 32. Now let's try to run it again. Now you see that now we are getting 5, because both of these two variables has been declared as a integer. So that's how PowerShell is a dynamic language. It's a flexibility to have a dynamic language where system admins do not have to go into the deep details of the data types, where right, but it happens when you start writing complex scripts, complex code, then you might want to have a control on the variable type, and that's when you will have this optional feature as well. So for the beginning you can ignore this, but as and when you start developing a script where you don't have control over the input system, or if it is coming from a different system, maybe from Active Directory which is supposed to have that value as a string, but you expect it as a integer, or might be a Exchange mailbox, might be a Azure. So there are so many possibilities that you will be getting something from outside your control, and then you have to have the control over the data type of that variable. So that's how you can control it. So that's what variables are, more or less. That's how you declare a variable, like $, then variable name, then you pass the value for it. It can be integer, it can be something, or it can be commandlet output, like get service. Okay, get service where name is equals to spooler. Okay, so I will say spooler, then this value, if I will run it, then var name does have the spooler service. If I will print the var name, okay. Right. So we got due to some reason I have got this error here, but yeah. So this is how you can use the variables to even assign output of a particular commandlet. So that's how variables are used. Variable can be you can explicitly tell the variable type, or you have the option to ignore that if PowerShell is detecting the right data type for you. So that's how it is. Now let's go back to our presentation, and let's continue our next topic, which is data type. Okay, so it is again the the same discussion. I took the integer type. Now here I have taken the date, date for getting the data type. So let's just run this one as well, get date, right? So if you will run it, right, it will give the date, right? So if I will do one thing, that if I will do get date, okay, dot get data type, we did this particular, so that's why I avoided this example. So we have the data type of this particular commandlet, right? So that's what data types are, right? So now let's go back to the next slide, which is okay, environment variables. So you can declare your own variable, and then there is a special type of variable which is called environment variable. And what are those? First, before going into the what are the environment variables we have, let's go. Let's discuss what environment variables are. I mean, you all know that there are few environment variables you declare in your system. So what they are used for, right? So there are few default things, right, which is used by different softwares on your computer. So if you are coming from a Java programming background, before compiling your first program, you will have to declare the Java compiler path into your environment variable. So that is for the programmer's background. But then let's forget the programmer's background. Now if you are coming from system admin background, then also if you install a software, so if you will start installation, then there is a phase when it automatically detects the default installation directory, which is C dash program files 86 folder dash whatever it is. So that's what the the environment variable value for installation path. So it has been defined in your system, and Microsoft supposed to expect you to use that for every installation. But sometimes it happens for any customized installation, like you have to install something like SCCM or maybe SQL cluster or something, where you need to install it on a particular path or on a on a particular disk drive attached to your system. So that you will there you will ignore that value, and then you will explicitly tell the system that this is the value where you need to install that particular application. But yes, there is a default value for installation path, so that is one of the environment variable. So just like that, there are so many environment variable in your system, which is used by sometime operating system, sometime some software. So just like that, PowerShell do also have some environment variable, right? So whenever you do certain things, PowerShell use those environment variable to do certain things. Now what are those environment variable and what are the commonly used environment variable? We will go through it. Okay, there is a command which is called get variable. Okay, so if you will run it, it will give you all the variables, including your custom variables, including your variable which you have defined in the current context. Current context means the current session. It will display. So apart from there are so many other variables. Apart from that, you should be able to see var1 and var2. These are the variables I have created in this session. If I will kill this session, let's kill this one, okay, and if I will start a new session, those var1 and var2 should not come, but rest of the things will come. Let's just go through it. Get variable, okay, so you see there is no v var1 or var2, so those were valid for that session only. and rest of the things are as it is. Now there are lot of environment variable, very few of them we use very commonly, and I will go through those few of them, and you can go through all of them if you want. But okay, so as I told you, so get variable will give you all the variables you have declared in current session, including the environment variable. So if you have declared your variable in the in the current session, then only it will get it will give you that. If you have killed that session, if you have closed that session, then if you are again running the get variable, it will only give you environment variable, because they are defined by PowerShell installation, right? So very first of the environment variable which we use very commonly is this one, $PS version. You have done this lot of time, PS version. This is an environment variable. If you see, it starts with a dollar, and then there is a table, and then we are picking especially the PS version. Then there are different options for that as well, major, minor, things like that. But let's run this complete, and you will get the complete PowerShell version running on your system. So this is one of the very first variable. If you will install PowerShell, if you or if you have logged into your server, then if you want to know the current PowerShell version on your computer, you will use this particular environment variable. Apart from it, there are so many other variables as well. Let's go back to the top of it, and I will start from here. We use this question mark, okay, a lot. I will tell you how we use it. And there is a okay, so okay, this one, error is an environment variable. What happens, let me try to print it. If I will run it, I get nothing, right? Let's clean this one, and then let me run it again. Okay, so if I will run it, nothing. Okay, so error, and this particular environment variable is an array of errors in your current session. This is a very useful environment variable which you will be using for handling errors in your script, in your complex script. So suppose let's first discuss how this works. Let's suppose I have run a particular command which is not there, and then we got this error. Right now, let me go back to error again, and then let's see what happens. Now there is something. So you see that whatever the error I got last time, I got over here. Now let's try to run one more error code. I mean something which should give me error, and I'm running again. I got the error. I got error again. Now let's run the let's go back to the error variable, and let's try to see again. Now you will see two values. So what happens, this is a array actually which keeps all the which keeps updating all the errors you got in the current session. So suppose you are running a script, and each time or after each task you supposed to check whether there was any error in the last step or in the last execution you did. Last means the steps you have done in the in the code in the current session. Like suppose your script supposed to do 5 things, like it goes to the Active Directory, creates a user, then it goes to the Exchange, creates a mailbox, then it goes to the somewhere else, in Oracle, and then creates a record over there. So it has 3 or 4 tasks to do. Now if you have done your Active Directory task, and then if you are jumping to the next one where you are creating the Exchange information, then you want to make sure that Active Directory 1 finished properly. That time you can go back to error variable and check whether there was any error last time or not. If there are error, then it will have values. If there was no error, then it will not have any value. Then you can proceed further, and you can design your error handling accordingly. So this one helps a lot to get the details of errors so far in your current session. So that's what the error variable is. Now let's go back to the get variable. And let's see, let me see what else you will be using a lot. Okay, so ARGS we use, but I will explain it in with example when we get error. I have already discussed error action preference. Okay, this one is also used a lot. I have a dedicated dedicated session on that, so we will continue, we will discuss it later. Now we have a home variable. Let's go back and find what this home is. Oops. Right, so home is my home directory. Okay, now there is another folder which is called profile. That is also very useful. Let's go back, $profile. Okay, and if I will run it, profile, you see there is a script actually, right? There is a script path. So let's go back to this path and let me see what is there. Okay, so let's open any folder. Okay, and let's open this path. Okay, there is a script. Actually, I have created it. If I will delete it, then also it will give me the script path. Okay, the same, right? It is not there, but still it is giving me. So if I want to have a script path, then I will have to create a file with this name. So I will create it, new file, and what I will do, okay, yes. Now this will be a PowerShell file. Let's go back to edit mode and let's open it. And what happens is, this is a script, profile script, and you can see this is a ISE profile script. So it is valid for ISE only. For your console, for your PowerShell, let's go back to PowerShell. Okay, instead of ISE, I want to open the Windows PowerShell. Okay, so run as admin. Okay, and then let's try to find the profile path for this session. It will be different, just the file name, profile, right? So there is a profile underscore profile. However, there is PowerShell ISE underscore profile. So these two profile path or profile script are different. That is what I mean. These two different, these two profile script. And what profile script are, just like Windows user profile, it is just like for shell or for Windows ISE, that whatever you written over here, if you will write write host welcome to ISE, whatever you written over here, and save it. Okay, and next time you will open ISE, let's try to open it ISE. Let's close everything and let's try to run ISE. You should be able to see that first. That will run first. If I will say, you see, welcome to ISE. So profile script is very useful for system admins who log into systems, remote systems, and they use PowerShell for a specific tool, like for SCCM or for SQL or for a particular specific tool set. And for many tool sets, when Microsoft has created its own shell, right? So that automatically import all the required modules for that particular tool set. Like SCCM has its own shell, Exchange has its own shell. So if you will run that Exchange shell, it will automatically import that module. But if you are using a tool which does not have that dedicated shell, then you can create your own then you can create your own profile script you will include everything you want to import on the run on the first time instantiation of PowerShell. Then it will take care of that, like importing Active Directory module, or importing SQL module, or importing anything, importing PowerShell disaster state modules, or anything, any custom modules you want to load up on the first time. So that's what the profile scripts are, right? So we have already crossed 30 minutes. I thought of covering arrays and hash table today itself, but as I told you that I will not exceed this time limit, because I want to make sure whatever the things we are discussing, you should be you should be able to get those concepts in the video itself. Not, I mean, it should not be too lengthy to discuss these topics. So I will continue these array and hash table concept in the next video. Let me know your feedback, and please comment, please share, please like. I mean, please keep commenting, keep giving your feedbacks, so that I can improve on my presentation skill, or the way of explaining things, or if you want to include a particular thing, that also you can say. So yeah, I mean, that is the only thing I would ask you to do. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye bye.